All right, I gotta say it. The X-T1 has to be the greatest EDC camera of all time. I've shot with cameras with more megapixels, more everything, and yet I still keep on reaching for this one. This camera made photography feel fun again, not just another day at work. You know, there's just something about shooting with a small compact camera like the X-T1 that makes you want to just go out and shoot. Lately, so few people speak negatively about the Fuji X-T1. There's a lot of people that are still using this every day in their travels or even professional work. It is a professional camera after all, and this is one that was a top-of-line camera around 11 years ago. When it comes to photography, cameras haven't changed much, and that's what a lot of people don't quite understand. When you're looking for something specifically designed for photography, anything within the last 15 years will be more than good enough. Let me talk about my intentions and reason for buying the Fuji X-T1. I bought the Fuji X-T1 to have as a travel camera to be paired alongside my Pocket 3. Mostly doing photography, getting into video, I thought this was a pretty good way to go about things, having two different cameras for two specific purposes. After a little while, I realized the issue in this though, and I'll get into that pretty soon here. For most people, the X-T1 is more than good enough, and I think you're going to be really happy with it. But there's a small group of people that might not be the case, and you may be in the same boat as myself. Let's get into the last few months that I've used this every single day, and I want to describe my experiences and the benefits and the downsides using the X-T1. Stay tuned for later in the video where we'll do a sensor test between the XM5 and the X-T1. This is 11 years apart of camera making, and to be honest, this one feels way more premium than the XM5, a modern camera that's not even a year old. The X-T1 is compact but not cramped. It's small enough to carry everywhere, but with real physical controls that feel like you're actually shooting on a vintage film camera. Paired with something like my favorite 28mm f2 adapted Voigtlander M lens, this thing disappears. And the images, there's really nothing at all to complain about, especially for a 600 Canadian dollar camera. You have a really nice switch here, switching between manual, continuous, or single point focus. You have a really nice ISO dial here with a lock on it, which is not everyone's favorite, but I don't think it's too bad. And then here with the shutter dial, it's nice and responsive, although it does get stuck a little bit, I find at times, and there also is a lock to keep it on auto if you'd like. You have an exposure compensation wheel here. And then on the back, I really do appreciate shooting with this flip screen for photography purposes. If you're recording yourself, I mean, you obviously can. And this camera is not necessarily for video, so I think this design is perfect for this camera, although it would be nice as well as if it flipped out vertically as well. However, it's still decent. You have a nice focus assist button to check your focus when manually focusing, which is really nice compared to the XM5. I find the design is much better for manually focusing my lenses. The menu is also really nice, and I think everything is easy enough to figure out. This is really not a complicated camera to go through in the menus. Everything is really easy to figure out. There's so few sections. I feel like it's about as easy as trying to navigate a Leica Q. So I really think that this camera is a winner if you want something that's nice and simple to use in operation. The grip is actually really nice on this. I have really large hands with really long fingers, and it feels decent. It has like a little bit of a thumb rest here too, which is really nice to hold on to like this, and it protrudes out enough that it works for you, especially with this here. So yeah, the grip is good. The 2.36 million dot EVF is actually really good, even by today's standards. So you will be able to easily see what you're wanting to compose. The screen here is only a 1.04 million dot screen. However, Sony still releasing screens, not much better than that. The shutter button on this is nice and responsive and has a really nice sound to it. Can be quite fast if you want to fire at higher speeds as well. I don't do this often, so to be able to get that sort of shot speed out of an old camera like this, like you can tell that it has a really good processor in it and can be used for sports and things like that. Mind you, the autofocus might not be good enough for some sport applications, so you're gonna have to really know what you're doing in order to try and use it for sports, because even some of the new Fuji cameras suffer at autofocusing on really fast subjects, so that's something to keep in mind. This X-Trans2 sensor has a really filmic, organic sort of feel to the images that when you add a bit of grain or raise the ISO a bit, really looks like it was shot on a film camera. And that's something that a lot of people really appreciate about this design. The colors coming from this out of camera, I think, are much truer to life and more of my style compared to my Nikon Z6III. So I've really appreciated the look that you get with very minimal color grading. I found this camera did really well as well at high ISO due to the X-Trans2 sensor, but what sets it apart is its unique color filter array. Instead of using standard Bayer patterns, 2 green, 1 red, 1 blue in a 2x2 grid, it uses a 6x6 randomized array that more closely mimics the randomness of film grain. Because of the random X-Trans pattern, moire is significantly reduced without needing a softening filter. Most Bayer sensors require an OLPF to reduce moire, but that also softens the image. By removing the OLPF, the XT1 retains more micro contrast and edge detail even at higher ISOs. That means when noise is introduced, your image still looks sharp and punchy, not mushy. With all this camera really has been a nice addition for my travels. Carrying it through the mountains of Indonesia, walking through the streets of Taiwan. It's just been truly a nice photography camera to have, and I think anyone who's looking for a photography camera would really like this. But there are some downsides to this camera that we should get into. For me, the shutter dial has to be one of my least favorite features with this, just the way it works in operation. I really have quite a struggle switching the shutter dial. Not only is it hard to turn, it also changes the metering mode. So you'll be going between spot metering, whole scene metering just by changing the shutter dial, and you'll have to change the shutter and then also put this back to the spot where it was before. Now I find that this can be fixed just by using automatic shutter mode, and that's what I would recommend, probably leaving this on when using this camera. One of the issues that a lot of people face with the X-T1 is that the rubber on the camera actually comes off. So I would advise to try and find one in pretty good condition so you don't have that peeling off, or be prepared to have to replace or fix that. This camera has very few film sims compared to newer cameras like my XM5, so things like Across, Rel, Ace, Eterna. Oh, it's sad, there's no Eterna. However, I use that mostly for video. However, Eterna is still nice. I like the low saturation look of Eterna, even for photos. There is no 4K video when shooting video, and the video in this is not super great. Most people advise you to completely avoid shooting video in this, but we're going to give some video examples. Why not? Let's go shoot some clips with it and let's see how this camera does and how it holds up in this day and age. With adequate lighting, I think you can do just fine with shooting this for video in a pinch. So if you have to do so, don't be afraid to use it. It probably will work out just fine. Okay, now going into the comparison between the X-T1 and the XM5, both images are using a Provia RAW setting, and both were shot in RAW. We're just going to do some comparisons now of how these images stack up with one another. And I may have missed focus a little bit on this because I was using a manual lens. It's just this Ultron 28mm is the sharpest I have, but we have other examples here. Let's just look, for example, at the color, how it compares. Yeah, you can see that it looks like the X-T1 is actually sharper in this image, which is interesting. But now looking at the colors, I think I like the reds more on the X-T1. And the greens, I think, look a little more natural too on the X-T1. So this image looks really great. Okay, now going on to the next two here, set the lens to f2, and you can see now that the XM5 on the right hand side is quite a bit sharper. But images are pretty comparable, honestly. There's not too much of a difference. I find that the colors I think I like a little bit more on the X-T1. And the reds, you can see, look quite a bit more true to life. This red here looks a little pinkish, to be honest. And the color in the trees still looks a little bit better on the X-T1. But yeah, what do you think? How do you think the two cameras stack up against one another? Moving on to the next example here, I've shot this with the 15-45 and both images look pretty similar. There's not too much of a difference, with the X-T1 on the left having a little bit more natural colors again. Although I do like the look of some of this grass here and the look of the trail on the XM5, I think looks a little more natural. I like the yellow undertones. Moving on to this landscape shot now, both images looking pretty good here with not too much of a difference. The XM5 is on the right, the X-T1 is on the left. Colors, not too different, honestly. I did notice there is a bit of a difference in watercolor though, with maybe the X-T1 looking a little more natural once again. Sharpness and detail though on the XM5 is more what you would expect, but it's not too significant, honestly. Moving on to the last image here, we have the X-T1 on the left once again and the XM5 on the right, and I really do think that I enjoy the colors once again on the X-T1 a little more. I think they're maybe a little more natural. Some of the yellow tones are a little understated on this one. However, in the water you can definitely see it quite a bit more. I spoke positively about this camera almost the entire video now, but I did hint at the start why I would be selling this camera in place of the XM5. It's simply the fact that when I purchased it, I figured I would use this for photos and then I would use Osmo Pocket 3 for video. And I found myself only using one of the devices most of the time because the hassle of trying to manually focus, say, a Voigtlander lens and use an Osmo Pocket, I just felt that it wasn't all that realistic for me to use And a much better option would be to get an all-in-one small pocketable camera like the XM5. All in all, the X-T1 is the greatest photography EDC of all time. It's so small, light and practical, and there's such a wide variety of lenses to use in many different situations. It has really good battery life, and the high ISO noise performance is really good and has like a really nice look to it. And the images that complement it in general are nothing short of incredible. It's truly a great camera with so much functionality. Unfortunately though, the XM5 is just a little better for my use cases as I want to pursue YouTube a little more in the near future. So look forward to some videos with this camera here. I want to go into some things like lenses that I've used and adapted, some of these mounts that I've created with 3D printing. So yeah, lots of interesting stuff on the horizon. Stay tuned for more videos. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. Please like and subscribe. Bye.